Whether it's a haunted hotel or a creepy old mortuary, there is no shortage of spooky locations all over the world. But not all scary places are made equally. Some might only be haunted by a mischievous spirit looking to prank you, while others are likely housing terrifying demonic entities with much darker intentions. Speaking of demons, we are back again today with part 2 of the most haunted places that are hiding pure evil. So grab your holy water and let's get started. Starting us off at number 10 are Satanic Symbols. Back in 2013, a couple named Janine and AJ moved into a quaint and sweet little house in Springfield, Louisiana. They were so excited to get the house and were amazed at the cheap price. But soon after they moved in, it quickly became apparent as to why the price may have been so low. Things started off small, as it usually does, with their radio turning on all by itself or seeing the lights flicker independently, but soon enough they overheard their son speaking to who he described as an imaginary friend late at night, and they heard a strange voice threaten to begin hurting Janine. Before long, Janine was being assaulted by the unseen presence, waking up to find bruises and scratches, and would often get pushed around by the demon in the middle of the day. She began noticing that the rosaries she hung were spinning in the house, plaster was falling from the ceiling and missing her by mere inches, and she began to seriously fear for her life. One day, her and her husband decided to leave out a tape recorder to see if they could get any proof of the demon occupying their house, and sure enough, when they went to check up on it the next day, they captured a growling sound and the demon saying, "She will die." But the last straw was when they moved a rug in one of the rooms, only to discover that the floor had been covered entirely in satanic symbols. This led them to believe that once upon a time the house had been used by a satanic cult that had likely brought the horrific demon that was taunting them into our world. Needless to say, they packed up everything and got the out of there. Next up at number 9 is Sarah Winchester's mansion. As the story goes, in 1881, Sarah lost her husband to tuberculosis, and in her grief sought out a spiritualist in hopes they could help her contact her husband to help her overcome this tragedy. But instead of getting the solace and closure she was looking for, she received an ominous warning that sent her off the deep end. You see, her late husband's family had created the notorious Winchester rifle that became known as the gun that won the West. What that meant was that thousands had died due to this creation of the gun, so when they reached her late husband in the beyond, he warned Sarah that all their lives' tragedies were a result of the blood money earned from the evil weapon. Next, he explained that spirits were coming after her with a vengeance and she needed to build a home for herself to protect against them. But there was one catch: she could never stop building. If she stopped construction, she would die. Sarah took this omen incredibly seriously and began construction on her property immediately, turning her house into a topsy-turvy maze-like mansion, believing it would confuse any spirits who tried to enter and torture her. There are staircases that lead to nowhere, trapdoors, skylights on the floor, doors that open to walls, and even a door that opens to a second-story drop. With all that, it's said that ghosts really did get trapped inside and now, unable to leave, get madder and madder with each passing day. Many have reported seeing apparitions, voices, and footsteps while visiting. Next up at number 8 is a demon mirror. It's not just homes that demons can allegedly occupy, but they're also a big fan of inanimate objects. In this case, a mirror. According to London roommates Joseph and Sotiris, they scored a free antique mirror from their landlord a few years ago. The friends were young and didn't have much money, so they were just happy to get a free piece of furniture. But after bringing it into their home, strange things started happening, and they soon discovered it had to be connected to the new mirror. The roommates began suffering intense and lucid nightmares and would wake up with brutal stabbing pains all over their body, along with scratch marks. Not only that, they would frequently wake up to find their entire house was practically turned upside down in a complete pigsty, almost as if they had been robbed. Soon enough, they were seeing shadowy figures lurking in the corners of their house and saw glimpses of darkness in the mirror, along with orbs of light appearing out of nowhere in the room. Eventually, they decided to get rid of the mirror and they landed on selling it on eBay with plenty of warning about what to expect. I have to say I am worried for whoever bought it from them. If it were me, I would have just destroyed it. Next up at number 7 is a Ouija board. I don't know who decided to let Ouija boards become such an easily accessible item available to purchase at Walmart, because I don't think I have ever heard of it going well for anyone. One of these such stories is that of Tracy and Kieran Fry from South Wales. They became huge names in the British tabloids back in 2015 after they claimed that beginning on Halloween night, 3 incubus demons made their way into their home and began terrorizing them both physically and mentally every night for months. But they really got afraid after their son reported the demon visiting him, threatening to slit both Tracy and Kieran's throats in their sleep. And not long after that, they claimed to have witnessed the apparition in the light of day and even snapped a picture of the demon for the paper. The couple believed that the evil spirits managed to use their Ouija board as a vehicle to infest their home, which they had apparently used previously in an attempt to contact the dead. Eventually, the torture got so bad that they contacted a paranormal investigator as well as a vicar to try and rid the demons of their home, but allegedly only 2 of the entities were able to be squashed, and according to the couple, the demon never actually left and continues to haunt them to this day. Coming in at number 6 is DeAnna Simpson. After years of being haunted by several demonic entities in her home, DeAnna decided to reach out to reporters to share her story. Although the details have never been confirmed, DeAnna claims that the origin of the demons in her home come from a series of gruesome deaths that occurred on the property, and she believes that the spirits are angry and unable to move on from their deaths. Eventually, things got so bad that in 2014, a film crew from Fox 43 arrived to see for themselves if the rumors were true, and what they saw changed their lives forever. As soon as they entered, they knew that DeAnna had been telling the truth about the entities in her home. One of the cameramen, Nick Petrillo, said he felt burning all over his hands whenever he tried filming inside the house, and the only thing that made it go away was the holy water that DeAnna poured over the area. While the crew was there, she went into more detail about her experience with the demons, explaining she believed it was multiple evil spirits haunting her, and that over the years they frequently tortured both her and her husband, physically and mentally, and she was beginning to lose hope about a better life. DeAnna claims that she captured the shadowy figures on film, although this has never been confirmed. Still, the camera crew seemed to be quite on board with her experience. Coming in at number 5 is The Cage. During the witch trial era of Essex, this house was used as a prison for women accused of such sinful acts. During the 16th century, it housed 12 accused witches, one of which was the famous Ursula Kemp, who was tragically hanged for her so-called witchy ways. Whether that is all a coincidence or not is up for debate, but according to the 2004 owner, Vanessa Mitchell, it is a terrifying haunted home filled with deep-seated evil. The demons wasted no time introducing themselves to Vanessa. She claims that the first night in the house, she saw a shadowy figure in the corner and knew right away that something was very, very wrong. Shortly after, she began to feel harassed by the entity, as it would do things like push her when she was home alone, smack her hard enough to leave bruises, and even shoved Vanessa down the stairs. Not only that, she began seeing strange things. Blood stains started showing up on her floors all the time, and objects began launching themselves across the room. Whatever it was, it did not want her there. In an interview, she states that during her 3-year time living in the cage, she witnessed 4 ghosts, 2 men and 1 woman, as well as a horrifying goat demon, which she claims to have captured on camera. Thankfully, she got out alive, but the house remains a notorious spot in Essex, frequented by paranormal enthusiasts hoping to catch a glimpse of the evil entity that nearly killed Vanessa. Next up at number 4 is the Smurl House. Between the years of 1974 to 1989, the Smurl family was subjected to some incredibly terrifying hauntings in their Pennsylvania home. Over the 15 years they lived here, Jack and Janet Smurl, along with the rest of the family members, reported that their TV burst into flames, their toilets would flush themselves, and that various electronics would stop working for no reason at all. But it was at night that the family got truly terrified. They would hear the loud footsteps, steps despite there never being an intruder, and a nauseating smell always filled the house, but only ever at night. Soon enough, things got even scarier. They began finding what appeared to be claw marks all over the bathroom, and then in 1985, a full-bodied apparition began haunting the halls and hovering over them while they were sleeping. The family named her Old Hag, and it seems that after a while the demon got bored of just watching the couple sleep, so it began harassing them, and according to Janet, would routinely commit SA on both her and her husband. That was the final straw for the couple, and so they decided to bring in a priest to exorcise the demon out, but even after 50 exorcisms, the entity refused to tighten its grip. So, fearing for their lives, the family finally moved out in 1989 and never looked back. Next up at number 3 is Latoya Ammons. When Latoya Ammons moved into her quaint home in Gary, Indiana in 2011, she had no clue what was in store for her and her family. According to Latoya, things got bad quickly. The first troubling phenomenon occurred when a huge swarm of large black flies started circling the family's screened-in porch and only seemed to be multiplying. These flies were relentless, even staying through the winter, and as soon as they arrived, so did the sounds of strange footsteps at night. Then one day Latoya saw a shadowy figure walk across her living room and she began to panic. Something evil was in her home. It all came to a head after Latoya witnessed her unconscious 12-year-old levitating above her bed at 2 a.m. So she contacted some clairvoyants to try and rid whatever evil spirit was living in the home. According to the paranormal experts, Latoya's home was haunted by an astonishing 200 demons and was indeed a very dangerous place for her and her family to be living. Latoya decided the best course of action was to undergo exorcisms to rid themselves of anything the demons could have placed on them and flee their home. All I can say is thank God they got out alive. Coming in at number 2 is the Sallie House. Built in the 19th century, this haunted Kansas home is named after the ghost that is believed to roam its halls. The haunted house came into light back in 1992 when owners Tony and Deborah Pickman came forward saying that they began experiencing very strange things in their home after the birth of their daughter. What was once a completely normal home was suddenly infested by a demonic entity, covering the couple in scratch marks, cuts, and bruises nearly every day, and anyone else who visited the house received the same treatment. Soon, things only got worse. They were seeing full apparitions of the demons, watching objects float around their house, and hearing strange demonic noises at all hours of the day. It got so bad they contacted investigators who attempted to reach the spirits and reason with them, but the investigators were similarly tortured by whatever it was that was in their home. Eventually they came to realize that Sallie, the house's most active ghost, had died here when she was young from a botched appendectomy, and despite what they initially thought of her, she was not the demon herself. Instead, she had somehow become a magnet for dark entities to pass through, almost like a portal for demons to enter their house, and it was them who was making their lives a living hell. By 1994, they had enough and moved out of the horrible house, but have since maintained a website dedicated to their experience there. And last up in our number 1 spot today is Marie and Chris. Marie and Chris had a blended family, each with kids from previous marriages, and lived a very happy life. Until they decided to use a Ouija board to contact Chris's son from the dead. Quickly after beginning, they were contacted by an entity claiming to be Chris's son, but in fact, it was not his son, it was a demon masquerading as him. The demon called itself Frank and began detailing its desire to possess Julie, one of Mary's daughters who had cerebral palsy. This was enough for the couple to know that things were very wrong, and they quickly closed the board and ended the seance. But unbeknownst to them, they had opened a door they couldn't close. The family began being taunted by the entity Frank, and so Chris, thinking it would banish the spirit, decided to burn the Ouija board, but all it did was make Frank angrier and stronger. He began appearing in Mary's dreams, continuing to threaten the life of Julie, to the point where Mary was too afraid to even sleep, fearing it would only be the tortures of the demon all night. The family began seeing faces in the walls at night, waking up with scratches and bruises, and eventually decided to contact a professional. When the investigator arrived, he went to where the spirit was most active and sprinkled talc powder all over the floor there. To everyone's shock the next day, the name Julie had been scrawled into the powder on the floor. At that point, the family decided the only thing to do was to reach out to a Catholic priest for an exorcism. The priest eventually managed to banish Frank, but not before he possessed poor Julie for several hours. Moral of the story? Don't mess with Ouija boards. Well, there you have it, guys. I hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments if you know of any other evil haunted places. See you next time.